podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, welcome to Drinking with Authors. Okay, my podcast consigliere is adding a chair track now for these, so it's pretty awesome. I'm actually really super happy about that. Okay, so I'm your host, Erica Lance, and with me today is
Vanessa Valiente.
And our guest today is M.R. Noble. Woo! Okay, so let's talk about what we're drinking. I do have my Drinking with Authors glass. I have swag now, so now we're going to give it away. We'll mail you one. So I am drinking apple cider that I put on ice. I probably should not be allowed to adult by myself. Apple cider on ice with ginger whiskey in it. But instead of heating it up, which I've done in the past, I put it on ice. So, okay. Grown adult. Vanessa, what are you drinking?
Well, I'm not as fancy as Erica, but I got a good old Yingling right here. And I promise this is a 5-star beer because the last beer I drank, I gave it 3 stars. So this one I highly recommend.
Okay, Em, what are you drinking?
Today, I am going to be drinking an Irish car bomb.
What?
Woo!
Oh! She's a boss.
He's my new favorite! Don't put your damn Yingling away, Vanessa. This Irish car bomb.
My 5-star beer just went down to 1.
It did. I'm super jealous now. We got to do shots. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I love that. Okay, I don't even know what to do. I feel like, and we're done. We have now.
We have peaked.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Whoa.
All right.
I'm like crying. I'm laughing so hard. That's so good. Okay. I'm so impressed. Okay. No. Let's talk a little bit about what you write.
I'm going to have to ask a little clarification on that one.
Often, but man, I'm totally blown away by what just happened.
We had no idea that was happening to the listeners out there. That was completely I was like, what?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Anyone else we interview has to supersede that one. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, like you've now set a bar that everybody.
Well, how do you compete with the haunted vagina? Like
that is true. That is true. It's very hard to compete with the
There is no way, but you could try.
Oh my God, I'm doing an Irish car bomb next time. That's it. That's happening.
It's great.
Next time, let's just do a keg stand or like a line of flip cups or something. I don't know. That's
Vanessa, you are really overestimating my skills. Let's do something that requires dexterity. Yeah. Nobody wants to see me held upside down. No.
The next writer's lock-in will be a flip cup tournament. And we'll see how the brainstorming goes.
Oh, I like that.
Oh my God. Okay, so for the first ever Drinking with Authors con, we're going to have, that's it.
Flip cup.
Flip cups.
Championship.
Flip cups and keg stands. Okay. Let's tell the audience about what you write.
All right. So this is actually my debut that's being published in 2020. And I feel like when readers are going to start my vampire book, they're going to say, what the fuck is this? And then they're going to be really hooked on those first 3 chapters. So it is a paranormal romance with a complex magical world system with a crime fiction tone. So it's a real mashup.
You went real simple. Yeah.
It's a real mashup. So if you love like paranormal and you love that hard, gritty urban fantasy where there's usually like some of the best urban fantasies that I've absolutely loved, like Harry Dresden or the Anita Blake Vampire Hunters series. They have this really dark, dirty sort of crime fiction tone into the underlying themes and plots. So I think that I write what I love, and those series really inspired me. So that's what the book is. So when you read it, you're going to be a little confused, but I think that people are going to really like it because I
I'm
like it.
super excited. I'm a huge Dresden
Yeah.
Files fan, and if you've listened to the
Oh.
podcast, you've heard me talk about Laurel K, which I have to be nicer because Mayberry says he can get Laurel K on my show, so I have to stop bad mouthing.
I love her. I do. I love the
I just feel it's gotten a little out of control. We're on book like 487 right now, and I feel like it's
But you know what makes me feel better is when I go on her website, I see the list of charities she's got going on, and you keep scrolling and it keeps going. I'm like, well, you know what? Yeah, I can get behind this. You know, there's some good coming from this. So.
No, totally. I just think she needs more editing help. That's all I'm asking. I'm just asking for her to find an editor that will stand up and say, hey, don't use the word wound 13 times in 2 paragraphs. Hi. That's all I want for her because I love the stories. Like, it's one of my favorites, and I'm committed. I buy every single one of them, no matter what. But so now I'm excited for your book. When did your book come out? When do we get it in our hands?
So the pre-order is actually already up. Yeah, pre-order is up on December 2020. Sorry, pre-order is up, and the launch is December 16th, 2020. So it's available right now through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, BookBub, Goodreads. So we just went live, I think, with the pre-order for ebook a couple days ago, and paperback should be right behind it, maybe a few weeks. So
okay, well,
I'm excited.
We have a signed copy here at Drinking with Authors.
Absolutely. Don't tell me your address now, though, because you may get a bunch of, you'll get like 50 Laurel K books on your doorstep the next day.
That's fine. I'm just going to take
some anonymous highlighted in every single one.
Yes.
I got her to sign that chapter of the book where she did that. Yes.
Oh, nice.
When I was at Dragon Con, she was there, and I took it up, and I was with 2 friends of mine, and they're like, do not get us thrown out of Dragon Con. I'm like, I'm not going to tell her. So she started looking at it, and she goes, why do you want me to sign this chapter? And it has the bad guy. So she has a bad guy in her book who I think is one of the best bad guys ever. And he's like this guy who does bounty hunting.
Which book are we talking about? Sorry.
Is it Bullet? I have it in the other room. But it was she says the word wound, and Anita is in New Mexico with, oh my goodness, why is his name escaping me right now? Oh yeah, Ginger Whiskey, that's why. Ivan, no, what is his name? It's the big Russian guy that ends up being around the cowboy all the time, and I cannot believe the names are escaping me right now. But he's obsessed with Anita's character, but he's a serial killer and likes to hurt people, but he's a bounty hunter. Anyway, it's very complex. He's a very evil guy, and she's stuck in a room with him, and he's really close to her, and it's this whole encounter. And so I was like, I really like your bad guys, which is true. I didn't lie to her, but I really wanted to like highlight the word wound on the page and just go, please just get an editor, because it threw me off and it pisses me off and I get thrown off. And because I was listening to it on audiobook, and I'm like, did she just say wound like 13 times? And then I actually found the actual print book, and then I was like, fuck, she did do that. Okay, never mind.
I'm going to get her to sign it.
I did. I literally bought the hardcover to get her to sign it, and she signed it for me. And anyway, needless to say, I embarrassed my friends, whatever. And then I was telling Jonathan Mayberry about it, and he's like, I'm friends with Laurel K. I'm going to get her on your podcast. And I'm like, great.
Perfect.
I'm going to have to tell her not to listen before she
She'll love it. She strikes me as someone with a great sense of humor. Maybe I'm wrong.
She is, and she is so relatable to her fans. That's another thing about her. Like, she really interacts with her fans, which I think is a huge deal for writers. So since this is so this is your debut, which is awesome. What made you decide to write this book?
I was reading Stephen King, How To, and I was laughing my ass off because he wrote in it, every writer has a point where they stop reading and they put the book down and they say, I can do better than this. And I was crying laughing So I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat down and I did it.
Wow.
But I've always loved the arts and creative writing. I grew up as a science background, but I grew up in a very artistic household as well. So art was always encouraged. Creative writing was always encouraged. So I was always creative writing short stories. I hadn't committed to a full novel until I was like, yeah, you know what, Stephen King? Yeah, that sounds good. I think I want to do it.
So,
And I did it.
How long did it take from the time you did that to now?
So, okay, so I started writing in, like, I wrote my Carolina Delka Dark Eyes, my debut, in 2016. And it took me 2 years to write it. I wrote, I think from the time of publication now, I've probably written 6 drafts of the original story. And the first story was probably just a pile of shit. Like, it was probably just a pile of shit. But I think, like, the biggest message that I could give to writers is not to give up 100%. I had people tell me, because I actually struggled with a little bit of dyslexia in high school, in school, and I always got great grades. But it was always like people knew that writing, I always had that, not necessarily that it wasn't a strong suit, but like I always had a little bit of a drawback. So I had to work harder than other people. Even in university, I had to work harder to correct myself, because when I read, my brain will register what I want the words to say, right? Rather than what's actually on the page. So I have to go back and read it aloud and work a little bit harder. So when I told like my friends and family, I'm going to be a writer and I'm going to do it. And they're like, well, Margarita, like 1% gets published, 1% gets agented. Like, you know, you should consider that. But that fighter in me is always thinking, well, I'm going to prove you wrong because I always had to work harder than other people. So 2016, I sat down to write, and yeah, it was probably a pile of shit. It probably was, but I was goddamn inspired, baby, and I was gonna do it.
I think every first draft is a pile of crap.
Oh yeah. So I hired professional editors, and I had 2 right from the beginning, and they told me like, this is kind of a piece of shit. And I'm like, okay, bring it on, lay it on me, crush my dreams, and it's gonna make me stronger. So I rewrote it. So it took me about 2 years to write it. So 2016, so that brings me to 2018. And then it took me 3 years to sell it. And that was hard because everyone was saying vampires are out of fashion, like ghosts are in, witches are in. And then I had a lot of people saying vampires are never out of fashion. You know, there's always a following. But I love what I love, which is paranormal romance. I love the supernatural. I love the thriller aspect. I think everything's always tastier with a little bit of murder. Like, what's that famous quote? If you're starting with a murder, you're doing something right.
Ooh, I think that's Erica's mantra when she goes to sit down and write.
The horrors in horror.
I just try to find people to fucking kill. Like,
perfect. Yeah, kill your darlings. Kill, like, get the readers attached and then just murder them off. Yeah.
Okay, George R. Martin.
Oh, so sadistic. Yeah, absolutely. So it took me 3 years to sell it, and but I didn't give up. So I had I had years of querying and denials, and then I actually queried an editor at the Wild Rose Press, Miss Melanie Billings, and she emailed me back the next day, compared to waiting that 12 weeks, like 2 months, 2 to 3 months. Yeah. She emailed me back the next day, and I knew I had hit home with her, and she believed in my story, right? And that's how a lot of writers get that break, is you just need that one person to believe in that story and think, hey, this is fresh. This is a new take on what we've seen before.
How come you didn't self-publish?
I was considering it. I truly believed that someone was going to see how fantastic it was. And like, in a lot of the podcasts you've done before, there's a lot of people, you've spoken about how not everyone's going to like your work, but some people are. I just truly believed in my project, thinking that a publisher is, out of all the editors out there, this is going to resonate with someone. I know it's going to do it. So I didn't give up in that sense. And then once I had a deal for publication, I approached an agent that I really admired, and she picked me up, and she's been fantastic to work with. So that's my story.
Wow.
I think it's a great story, but it is, I think, a lot of your attitude. Your writing, yes, you have to be good. You can't be crap because, well, I don't know.
You can start out as crap, but you got to learn to write, baby.
Yeah,
you got to learn to write and keep going.
And especially now, you have to have the goods. But I think your attitude probably had a lot to do with being able to get to the point you got to, and being willing to have like the editors take your work and rip it to shreds and go, here's the little pieces, you can have this back, and you have some glue, you might be able to fix what the hell just happened. But and that's important, to not look at it and go. A lot of authors that we run into, and even because if you listen to the podcast, you know we have a publishing side of this that we do. We're publishers as well. And they have this like, this is my little baby. And we're like, yeah, you should go somewhere else with your little baby. I'm a firm believer that if this is a little baby and your thing, go self-publish. Like, go. Because you're not going to make it in the publishing world if you don't do that. But I think that's a great story. And it's something that can happen. But it doesn't always happen, but you have to be willing to deal with what it takes to get to that point. And to what you said earlier, not give up. It's really easy to give up. It is super, like, giving up is one of the easiest things in the world to do.
Well, I went to a book signing one time for, her name is Tahira Mafi. She is a New York Times bestselling author, and I will never forget in her panel, she says the only difference between a published author and an unpublished is just trying, keep doing it, not taking no as the final answer, because you're even like the most successful authors still get rejected. So if you're going to get, down about the first rejection, then you're never going to survive it. It's just part of the nature of it. So if you love it and you're passionate about it, keep doing it.
That's it. I feel like, it's a Rocky Balboa moment. Like, don't give up.
On the steps.
Go and like bring on the pain. Yeah, go work through the rejections. It's gonna make you better, make you stronger. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you started this. What was your vision? How many books did you have envisioned? Are you gonna need to break this shit and be like 487 books later?
I have 9 books. I actually have 9 books drafted. I'm a huge fan of crossover. So I've got at least 3 books plotted for the Dark Eyes series. I have another series that I'm really excited about. I sent like a little sneaky peeky to my agent to get her excited about it too. And there's a lot of crossover. So in the sequel to Dark Eyes that I'm writing now, there's a lot of crossover to book number 1 of the next series. And then I have a 3rd series that I think is going to be based in Latin America that I'm excited about as well. So I've got the Dark Eyes series. I've got my next series. I can't say the title without giving away my new supernatural characters that I'm focusing on that I think is pretty fresh. So I can't say the name yet.
You're drinking an Irish car bomb.
I know.
About 30 minutes.
Oh, I know you're going to get it out of me at the end. So I'm really excited for that. But I can't say the name, so that's going to be hard. But
so is it like a side character from your initial debut that is going to kind of like?
No, she's not a side character. So I joked around with my agent when she first signed me. I said, like, you realize like you're signing like the best of the good bad girls, because Caro is a package with the other 2 bad girls. And they're the best of the good bad girls, so they're not too bad, but you can trust them a little. Like, they may like steal your wallet, but maybe they'll return it. You find the bad girls, like, and there's 3 of them, so they're going to be a package deal. But there's a lot of crossover with the next series, so I should have it like at least like. Like query ready, I'm thinking within about 1.5 years. for the next series. So I'm excited. And then I'm about halfway through the sequel to Dark Eyes now. I'm probably going to rest it and then go butcher it like my wonderful editors taught me how to. A little bit sadistic that way. Yeah.
So how fast are you I'm planning on getting the series out? Because there's a whole methodology now to putting out series.
Mm-hmm.
You just said 1.5 years, so I'm a little, because a lot of times now, must go faster. Jeff Goldblum. If anybody hasn't seen it, Jeff Goldblum redid the picture from Jurassic Park where his shirt is open. He still looks amazing. Anyway, side note, that's fine. Okay.
I just love Jeff Goldblum in Thor. Like, can we talk about when he melted a man with his melting stick?
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Turned into a pile of goo. It's like every scene I've ever written after that is like, do they turn into a pile of goo? I don't know. I've got to like write this out and see how this is gonna go. Like,
I got to meet him at Comic-Con actually. I got to meet Jeff. Yes. I will go
in person.
He is one of the nicest people. So when I go to conventions, because I go all the time, and I'll either dress up or I have a booth with books. I don't know. I don't care. I like just meeting people. Hence Laurel K. Hamilton at Dragon Con. And I get caricatures made of me and whoever I'm going to meet in a scene from one of the movies that I like. So I had him and me from this movie called Earth Girls Are Easy. It was with Gina Davis. Damon Wayans was in it, and so was God, what is his name? Anyway,
reminds me of
Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey was in it, and they were when they were really young. And it's such a cheesy movie, but in Jeff Goldblum's one of the aliens. But I had that picture, and I walked up, and he had lost his voice, but he was still greeting fans. And so they warned you that, like, he's not talking, he'll sign things, but just be aware he lost his voice. And I walked up, and he looks at me, and he's like, "This is really cute." Like, but he was like, "This is really cute." And you could tell his handlers were like, "Stop talking." Anyway, he was a very sweet guy, and anyway, that was the same day I met Jason Momoa, who told me I seemed very dangerous. Whatever. Correct assessment of that situation.
Well, if that isn't thrilling, I don't know what is.
I've actually had a picture with him, and I have to admit, he smells really nice.
I bet.
That's not creeperish at all, Vanessa.
I bet he smells like Nirvana.
I mean, he's just like, like I'm 5'2", and he's like what 6? I don't know, 6 something, and I'm just like, I look like a hobbit next to him, but it was a really nice experience.
Were you like clinging to his leg? What the hell is that gesture? Why we can't have nice things, Vanessa?
That's girls, just saying.
Okay, but so you have 3 different series. You're basically apparently creating the Charlie's Angels of Good Bad Girls, which is awesome.
Oh, I haven't heard that before. I dig that. Yeah. I'm a huge superhero fan. So.
Ooh, who's your favorite?
Ooh, that's hard. I feel like if I could blend, if I could blend Catwoman with Wonder Woman, then I would be happy.
Ooh,
which
I feel like Wonder Woman she's got like the skills. Like I love the brawn. Like I love the capability of Wonder Woman. It just made her so nice. So nice. And that's the issue. Like, and the innocence thing I love. Like I actually watched the Marvel Wonder Woman. I loved it. I digged it. I get the innocence lost. And actually in Dark Eyes, that's one of the main themes is innocence lost in my pro. But I just feel like she needs a little more dirt under her fingernails, so to speak. And I think Catwoman's got that. I love that Catwoman is a product of her gosh darn environment. Like she's lived on the streets, right? Like she's been hardened, like she's had her experience, and they've created her into what she is. And that's their problem.
Ooh,
and I dig
like
that. Yeah, I like the bite that Catwoman has. Yeah.
What about you, Vanessa?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I'm gonna say, oh my God, I don't know. I love Thor. Chris Hemsworth is pretty nice with his hammer.
Chris Hemsworth is nice with every. I'm you're not talking about his actual hammer, right?
I will have to say, oh God, you know what okay, so I will say my favorite all time, and it's not one character, but I would say my favorite group of characters is X-Men. I don't know what it is.
Nice.
I just love X-Men, like Storm, Jean Grey. Jean Grey, like Dark Phoenix, she just, I love how she tries to battle her own self. Like it's her, she's probably, Jean Grey. I'm going to say Jean Grey.
That's a good one. That's a great
in
one.
general, X-Men, any X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
I like how on the right side of this you are, because I'm like a Deadpool fucking Harley Quinn fan. Let's watch the world fucking burn together and be sarcastic while we're doing it.
Oh, great.
Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool was the greatest thing that ever was created. I just
like let's talk about, like, people talk about book boyfriends, like movie boyfriends. Hello.
Ooh,
why hasn't book boyfriends moved to movie boyfriends? Because I swear he'd be like number one of many lists. Let's be real.
I have to say, if I was going to pick a Ryan Reynolds, so I'd say Ryan Reynolds in The Proposal to be the number one book boyfriend. If you've never watched that movie, he's amazing in that movie.
I love that movie. And honestly, what's her name?
Sandra Bullock?
No, from Golden Girls.
The redhead.
Betty White.
Betty White. When she was dancing in the woods, like getting her groove on. I mean, she's my spirit. She's my spirit animal, spirit person. Like
Betty White in Lake Placid is my spirit animal. When she says, "I hope that crocodile eats all of your men."
Got you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, now, so let's talk. We went actually there. Wow, you derailed us. That was
You sure did. Yeah, you sure did. It's the Irish Car Bomb. I'm actually drinking out of a beautiful Flying Monkeys glass today, I'm going to say.
Oh my gosh.
The brewery is right up in Barrie, Ontario. Fantastic beer. So I'm going to do a little showcase to them tonight. But if you haven't had the chance, great
this
beer.
episode not sponsored by
Not
the
sponsored.
Brewery.
No.
So let's hold on. What time? Okay, we have to take a quick break. We will be right back with Drinking with Authors.
This is the voice of Drinking with Authors. You are at our commercial break, and our commercial is, hey, do you want to be a guest on our show? Or do you have a question for one of the guests on our show? Or do you have a brilliant drink recipe that we've never heard of? That would have to stump us. But you could reach us at drinkingwithauthors@gmail.com or on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can direct message or even just leave a comment on one of our posts. We would absolutely love to hear from you.
Previous to our commercial break that we now have on YouTube, because we're on YouTube. So we're not on YouTube yet. We're going to be on YouTube this week. It's fine.
Breaking ground.
Yeah, we are. Well, it was actually Kenya who's like, you need to put this on YouTube. She was like, you need to do this. And I was like, so I went to the producer and I'm like, I don't think we can wait anymore, because we were waiting until we were able to do some more stuff in person. Anyway, okay, where was I? Yes, your books. So let me just get this straight. I'm going to read your book and be in love with it and have to wait 2 years for the next one, because that's not acceptable.
I'm hoping I will have the first one out within the year of publication. So, sorry, the next one. So the sequel of the book will hopefully be ready by December 2021. I'm working really hard, guys. Because I butcher my work, I'm probably going to rewrite that first draft. I'm probably going to rewrite it a lot. So
I'm going to need you to go faster than you're going, and I haven't even read the book.
A year a book? You know what? I would love to send you the first 3 chapters, or even we could do a review.
Yes,
I
please.
It that way with my contract. I could read an excerpt too, but that's boring. But yeah, I like the first 3 chapters. I feel like they're gonna hit home with you, Erica, because I know you do the dirty horror that doesn't end well, and I'm happy with that. I'm so happy with a realistic ending, and then you love the romance too. So I think you'll dig it. And if you send me like a little message, like 6 months from now, you're like, hey, like read it, digged it, I'll be so flattered because you also write amazing books. So.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I'm gonna make sure. I gotta figure out a way to get a signed copy from you, but I'm gonna order this book because I love everything about what you're saying, what I read. I'm super excited. I'm just telling you that, especially when we have you on this podcast again, you're gonna get unrelenting shit if you take too long to get me the fucking book.
I will get it to you. That'll be my goal.
Yes.
Do I meet my Erica deadline?
Vanessa has those.
Mark it on the calendar.
Yes, I get daily reminders. Erica's like, so did you finish your book? So did you finish your book? Where are you at?
Let's do it. Yeah. No, I agree. It's your writing tribe. Like if you can't trust your writing tribe, who can you trust? Right? And you have to, I feel like as a writer, like you can write solo and you can go so far. But if you get published, if you do whatever, if you publish on Amazon, you self-publish, you become an indie author, whatever route you take, you're going to get a tribe eventually. If you try to deny it, it will still happen. But like you have to trust your writing tribe. So like Lonnie Cameron, very talented author. She has her debut coming out soon. She's a high fantasy author, very saucy little writer. And
Ooh,
I really think she's going to be big. Oh yeah. I really think she's going to be big. But you have to trust your tribe, right? So like they're the people that motivate you. Like surround yourself with the writers that care about you and love your work, and they're going to be honest with you, and they also keep you motivated. So you were talking about, tidbits to people that are trying to get published or considering self-publishing, whatever route you want to take. Always embrace your tribe. That's what I say. So.
Amen to that, because I think it's always usually easier to champion other people than it is yourself. And I'm speaking about what I do. Like I'm all here cheerleading for everyone else, but I'm like the worst when it comes to like getting my own stuff done. So Erica has to step in and be like, come on, start producing.
Vanessa has some of the most beautiful prose you will ever read, ever. And she's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write it, but make 20 million comments and not think it's done. And then I'm going to rewrite it 400 times so it's perfect. And I'm like, just fucking publish the book. Like, yes. I don't know what the fuck you're waiting for.
You'll never stop. You'll never stop. My editor had to tell me, like, so this is just for a review for typos. Typos only. Like, that is it.
Yeah.
You will never stop growing. So you will never stop wanting to add. But at some point, I think you have to make the decision to be like, okay, I'm going to let the world see my work. Because you could keep going. And Vanessa, this is not a put down whatsoever. If anything, it's speaking to your character and to the love of writing. But I'm so happy that this came up because I myself struggle with it as well. Like, I feel like because we never stop growing as a writer, I feel like already the sequel to Dark Eyes, or Carolina Delta Dark Eyes is my debut. But the sequel to that, I feel like it's already so much better than the first. And I think that's because I have grown as an author. And I think that people, when they're writing and when writing is a passion, they'll never stop growing. So in the situation where you're constantly reviewing, you will never stop growing. You could keep going and like keep rewriting and keep going, and it'll keep changing and it will be better and better every time. But at some point, you have to embrace the fact that you want the world to see it. So, Erica, if
girl,
you can push her,
me like,
her, you shove her in the direction.
Oh, I do violently.
It is time. Like, it is time. Then that's
I made her give it to an editor. I was like, so this is cute. Yeah. We're done with your bullshit. Give the book to the editor. And I made her give the book because I was like, I played her the Frozen Let It Go. I'm like, you have to. I'm done with this because you should be an amazing published author and you're not. Trust me, I know. I read my original stuff and I'm like, was I drunk that day? I was probably drunk that day, but it's fine. It's fine. It's out. I'm not going backwards and fixing it. I'm just moving forward.
That's it. Yep.
So question, now that we've covered superheroes, what do you think your biggest problem is as a writer? Like, what is your biggest, like, I need to be aware of this because I do this thing. My editors have fed back to me and said, I do X.
Okay, so I think of things backwards always. And I think that's like, we talked about a little bit about the dyslexia, like when I was growing up. And usually it's pretty rooted out of me now. Like if I type really fast, I'll write TEH instead of THE for the. So I have to slow down, I have to think of it. But not only that, I also think of things backwards. So like my sentence structure is often backwards, and I'll have this amazing scene and it'll be super emotional and very powerful, but my sentence structure may be backwards. So when I'm done a book, I do my first draft and to tell myself what the story is, and then I rewrite it to get my imagery and my character development, and I rewrite it to bring out the heart in each scene, and then I rewrite it again to butcher my own self and correct my pacing and get my excitement there that is originally there if I was self-indulgent on my first two drafts. And then my fourth draft, I'll look at it and I will look at sentence structure and grammar only on my fourth draft. So the first three drafts are all heart. And then the fourth draft is when I go in with my red pen and I'm looking at like basic things for writers, passive voice, where is the sentence structure? The result of the sentence should always be at the end. So like I can write sentences backwards in the sense that what is happening in that sentence may happen at the first part of the sentence rather at the end. So I'll have to correct myself.
The order of events.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that quickly eliminates any sort of passive voice. Although I don't actually have a lot of passive voice when I write. Usually what I write is very exciting, but my word sentencing or my word choice may be backwards. So I have to go back and then I have to correct it. And then my fifth draft is just cleaning house. So getting rid of useless words. So I write a lot of drafts per story.
I was going to say, I don't write that many drafts because if I reread it, I know myself, I will overdo it. So I just go, here you go. I have a totally different approach to the editing process because I'm just like, fix it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think what she does is great.
Yeah, because I'm like, here you go. I just can't look at it anymore because I'm seeing, by the second time I read it through, I'm seeing what I want to see in this story, not what's actually on the paper. So it's literally useless because I'm like, this is not even, I don't even, what? Okay, apparently I changed it. I've said this on a couple podcasts. Apparently, instead of realizing things now, everybody's fine with that. We don't have a lot of realizing happening anymore. But I'm changing characters' names from one chapter to the other. It's awesome. My latest thing. So now I have to be hyper aware of the character names and that I gave them. Because John and Noah are apparently the same.
Down to your outline. But no, you write in the dark. From what I understand, yeah.
I do. So I brought this because I've shown this on one podcast, but this is the outline to the sequel in the next Randy Michaels. That's it right there. That's the whole outline.
That's great.
It's one pad page that's there, and it's literally, and it's not even in order, even though it's numbered. I just put numbers so I can keep track of them. And that's the next, that's the third book in the Randy Michaels, which is The Training of the Tramp.
I love that. So yeah, that's totally letting the character take the wheel, right? Like when we're talking about writing process, like I dig that. I love it when characters become visceral and they just take over the story. So I think that's a fantastic, right?
The character doesn't take over the story, so it's weird to me completely. I will say, because not Vanessa, but Valerie's characters take over the story. More for me, and I found this out about George R.R. Martin. Did you guys know he's a pantser?
Oh,
George
I
R. R.
did.
Martin is not a plotter. I learned this because his writing bestie, whose name is Melinda Snodgrass, is on a podcast, and she told us that George R. R. Martin is a pantser. Like,
I didn't know
literally
that
doesn't
either.
outline.
That makes
just
so much
stories.
sense of like just everything. That makes so much sense. Why so many people get killed, like why certain scenes like delve so deep into the dark.
Well, yeah, I
And like
think
he's
also
just like,
that shows, like,
I'm gonna see where this goes as he types along. Like, oh,
Well,
that makes so much sense.
well, I think that's also why it takes him such a long time to finish it too, because he's sitting there and he'll write something, then he has to be like, wait a minute, no, and then goes back, and then like you have to keep going back to whatever point's not working to go, and like it takes him in new directions, or at least from what I've read about him is that, you know, he'll come to a point and then he'll go in one direction, then he'll come right back, and then he's like no, and then he goes in a complete. It's very interesting. I can't work that way. I will be stressed out.
Well, see, and that's the thing is that for me, yes, it's a character, and what would the character do? But I have the whole story playing like a movie in my head. So I'm just literally typing what I'm watching happen. So I don't have to do, and I will say this, I do, even though in my horror stuff, and I have my first full-length horror book coming out, which is a serial killers trilogy, I don't have as much research and plotting and stuff like that as a lot of people do when they write. Like the Horror Island books are from like a scene to a scene. There's not like this gigantic overarching story thing and 20 characters that you have to keep track of. Like it's one bitch and her friends, you know, that she fucks around a lot. Like that's really the story. So it's not as in detail as some of these plot lines end up being. So I don't need to do a world building book ever on Horror Island. There's no world building that's needed.
You just have to like control F, like find whatever name, replace with the final name.
God replaced Noah. That's what the problem was in the last book. Okay, so you said you wrote before. When did you start writing? So you wrote as a kid. When was your first published thing? Is this your first actual published work or no?
Yeah, so actually the first thing I ever wrote is the first thing I've had published. So that in a sense is a little bit unique. Not everyone sticks with their baby as long as I did, but I think because I rewrote it so many times that there was such a transition as well. So I was really discovering my voice too as an author, and I finally found a place where it felt real and visceral for me, and that was the place that actually got me published. I actually, when I did get published, I wrote an email. It sounds snarky, but it wasn't snarky. I had a lot of revise and resubmits on Carolina Delca Dark Eyes. I had a revise and resubmit from Entangled Teen Publishing.
Oh, yeah, I know
Yeah,
them.
and I had a revise and resubmit from not Stacey Abrams, from the agency that Stacey worked at. And I won't say the agent, who was fantastic. Like, she was great. So I had 3 beta readers that I gave my baby to, and then I had 2 revise and resubmits. And it was actually the revise and resubmits that really pushed me as an author. The revise and resubmit from Entangled Teen, I did it, and I did it with the voice that was true to myself. And originally they couldn't quite connect with my voice. I get it. I'm a very peppy person. I'm also pretty sadistic. So the combination is a bit odd. So it's not for everyone. And I think they picked up on that. And for my rewrite, it was more of a crime. I rewrote the story with more of a crime fiction tone, which is what it should have been originally. Which wasn't a good fit for Entangled. But Stacey Abrams actually gave me the revise and resubmit, and I sent her a really heartfelt message when I got published, because I told her that had I not received the revise and resubmit from Stacey, and had she not invested the time in me, like, let's talk about revise and resubmits for a minute, because a lot of authors take them to heart. Like, a lot of authors feel so wounded by a revise and resubmit. And when you actually look at the time and energy that a person puts into the revise and resubmit to give to you the knowledge that you need to advance your craft, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing when you actually get it. And like, they have thousands of people submitting, right? So for them to take the time out of their day, they think that there's some part of your work that has merit. And I really think that that's worth honoring. So when I did get published, I sent her a message saying thank you for the revise and resubmit. Yes, I rewrote the book with a really harsh, well, I wouldn't say really harsh, but I rewrote the book with a crime fiction tone, and it wasn't the right fit for Untitled once I went in that direction. But that direction was right for me as an author, and it was right for me as my voice, and it really empowered me to write that story. And I don't think I would be the writer that I am today without the feedback you gave me, because you pushed me. And so with every push and every rejection, like, there is growth. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that. And then also with Stacey Abrams, under her agency, I had a revise and resubmit again with voice, and my voice is very different. It is like a really positive voice and a very sadistic voice at the same time. So the mashup for some people can be confusing. And then for others who really love the genre, like the urban fantasy genre that is paranormal, that is crime fiction, that is a little bit saucy, but at the same time optimistic in tackling the barriers that life presents, I think that that group really digs it. But it's not a genre that is for everyone. So those two revise and resubmits really helped me grow as an author. And I think their push turned out in a really beautiful product. Like, it was a product that sold in the end. And to me, it's a product that I love. Like, I love this series. So I'm grateful.
Oh, yeah.
Girl,
No, I
preach.
think
Sorry for the
No,
car-bomb rant.
preach, because well, I will say this, because I'm an editor with Four Horsemen, which is the publishing company that Val and Erica started, and Jen and I, the other editor, we actually go in, and what you're talking about, what agents do, we do the same thing. We read the submissions, and we always really try, even if we don't take it, to give a little bit of a critique of some sort, just to kind of, but it's so true. It's very difficult when you have so many submissions you're going through that you don't have the time. It's not that you don't want to, it's just you just don't have the time. You're on a schedule. Like, not only are we going through submissions, but we have clients that we're working with to get their books out on time. And
yes,
and me write my own book as well. But it's anytime someone gives the time, even if it's not the kind of feedback that you want, you know that person did it out of caring, if they're able to have the time to do it, because we don't always have the time. And like in your case, it helped you realize that even though this wasn't the best fit for you, you found the right place for you. And so I just want to say that was awesome. That's really good feedback on that.
It's
You know
true.
what? It's like, go ahead.
As authors, I think we have to step back and realize there are a lot of pitfalls. There are some shitty things that can happen to authors. We've talked about them on this podcast. But at the same time, you have to keep improving. I'm not saying every author should have the thickest skin in the world, because some of us are very sensitive little creatures and stuff. I'm not one of those, but there are very sensitive little bunny rabbits that, but at the same time, you have to, I can get better. You have to want to get better at the craft. It is a craft. I don't care if you're a painter, you're whatever. I think people hear the stories of people who wrote a book and they got picked up, and then it was this brilliant thing, and they're the best author in the world, and it was their first time, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that is the exception and not the fucking rule most of the time.
Oh.
And you don't know how many times they went through that book over and over and over again, because it doesn't happen that somebody types one book out, somebody picks it up and is like, this is the most brilliant thing ever written. No. Because some editor hacked the living fucking shit out of that before a publisher put it out. So you don't
Absolutely.
have any idea what that first work looked like. And if you do not take it when somebody goes, if it's a rejection, you have to go, is it a rejection because they don't want it? Whatever. If there's no feedback, good, move on. But go, how do I rewrite this? How do I say this? How do I keep my voice and do the thing? Because you have to keep your voice and keep moving. But at the same time, get fucking better at what you're doing. You know,
Absolutely.
learn from your mistakes.
Yep.
That
Yeah,
is my whiskey rant.
I will say
Nope,
that
I
there's
agree.
never been one time where I can say that I got quote unquote negative feedback. And negative, I say loosely because it's someone saying that there's something that needs to be worked. There has never been one time where it didn't make me a better person or a better writer. And even if I didn't take that editor or that person's critique, it forced me to reevaluate the situation and write it in a way that not only addressed the problem, but made it where it jived with my voice. And that is how editing should be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. I think that's the sign of a fantastic editor is inspiring the writer to be the best they can be in the most concise language, but also maintaining that person's voice. I think like maintaining voice is huge, not to project onto the person that you're editing. So almost in editing, a less is more approach is true. But if you as a writer can embrace, you gotta embrace butchering your work. A, it's fun if you haven't tried it, but B, you're gonna wind up with the most concise, powerful form of your work that you ever had, right? So if you can embrace it, you're gonna learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
So you come out 2016, you're like, I'm gonna write a fucking book, and you take 4 years because it's 2020, and you
Yeah.
get your book out, and
Mhm.
you're doing this. What is your long-term goal? Do you want to be a full-time writer?
Oh, definitely.
Ah,
So I a little bit of my background, I was always a science person. Even growing up, even in high school, I was always debating science versus art. And I'm also pretty brainy. I love psychology. I love the science. I love my biochemistry. I have a bachelor of science in nursing is where I went. They say nursing is the balance of science and art. So you'll see in my autobiography, it's always that I've played tug of war with science and art. Brief background, like both my parents come from film and art. This painting behind me is actually my father's artwork. And
what?
yeah, he won a Tom
Wow.
Thompson Award when I was young. So he was a fantastic artist. So I did grow up with a mad artist in the household. My father would wake up at 3 in the morning to paint or with a spark of inspiration. And both my parents met through the film industry. My mom worked pre-production. My father worked post-production. My stepfather now works pre-production. So art and film have always been a fantastic part of my life. So I think I could only go so long with continuing with the science. I really miss the art. And as much as I love it, I think that what I've learned as a nurse and as a person really has made my writing more fulfilling. So absolutely, if I could create things full time for the rest of my life, that would be amazing. I'll probably miss nursing in the sense that I love to chat, but more than anything, I love learning people's stories as a nurse. As a nurse, you talk and you get to know people and you're an investigator and you hear about what matters to people. And I think nursing, in the sense, yes, we're healing people, but more than anything, what's more important than healing someone is actually finding out what matters to them. So the discovery of the person in nursing is actually more important than the healing because some people don't want to be healed, right? Like if they're palliative or whatever it may be, whatever path they're taking in life, it may not be to healing. I actually specialized in death and dying and palliative care when I did my Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So healing is not always the option. So in that sense, I think that I really enjoy discovering people. So when it comes to my writing, I have this chance to discover who these characters are and what their perspective is. Like there's so much backstory that goes into characters that is either in your mind or on the page that never actually goes into the story. So when I'm writing, I just really enjoy the discovery of the characters. So I think nursing, as I branch into full-time writing, I probably will at some point. I'm going to really miss nursing, but I'm going to honor what it gave me in the discovery of character, the discovery of people. So I guess
Wow.
that answers your question.
That is a fantastic answer.
That's a very poetic answer. I don't even know.
That is really awesome.
My husband says I'm often too poetic. That's my downfall.
What are you talking about?
I don't think that could be a downfall. When you're writing, because what kind of environment do you like to write in?
I write everywhere. I do. I write in the kitchen. I write in the library where I am now. I write with my 2-year-old daughter running around with pots and pans. I think that if the moment seizes you, write it. Like, you have to have that moment of, well, you don't have to have it, but I often have that moment of eureka where the writing takes you, and like, I want to figure out where this scene goes. And like, so in an interview I did, I'm part of a writers community, the writers community of York Region up here in Ontario. And I did an interview with them a long time ago. We talked about writing, about how you grow. Like, I read the interview a couple days ago when I Googled myself prior to publication. There was so many areas where I wanted to insert an Oxford comma. Oh my God. I was like, man, do I need to re-edit this work? But it's done. Like, I pushed myself. It's out there, right? And part of it is taking the leap, as like we talked about how you're constantly growing. So like post-publication, like, you're going to want to change. You're going to want to edit that work. You're going to have to let it go, baby, because you've moved on. It served you well for the time that you had in that moment, and you have to move on. But I already want to edit the shit out of the interview that I did in, I think it's like 2017, 2018. So that puts it in perspective.
Anne Rice always says that she doesn't look back on her old work in disdain like most of us do. And she says she always celebrates herself in the sense of that was the best that she could do at that time. And she just has to accept it, that was the best. And now that you see things now, it just means that you just improved. You got better. You're better than you were then. And
you Googled yourself, though, so that had to be interesting.
It is. Oh, you gotta Google yourself. Yeah. See what smut comes up. Get rid of it before publication. No, I'm just kidding.
I have Google alerts on myself that tell me anytime I mention anything.
Uh-huh.
So that makes it easier on me. Just for the record out there, you can set a Google alert on yourself. It doesn't cost anything, and anytime you're mentioned, Google will tell you you're mentioned in things.
Why haven't I done that?
Or indifferent, so it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yes, but okay. Well, we're coming to the end of this particular episode. What you already gave advice, but do you want to give any more advice to any new and aspiring novelists out there?
Let's see. Number 1 would be don't give up. Number 2, write what you freaking love. Like, we've all talked it to death. Write what you know, write what you love. Don't give up, number 1. Number 2, write what you love. Number 3, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail, and get up and try again. Like, you are like Rocky, you just keep going. And every time you fail, you're going to be absolutely stronger, and you're going to be absolutely wiser, and you're going to grow as a person. Number 4, love your tribe. Love the writers you have around you. They're talented, they're brilliant, they're doing the same thing. Embrace them, love them, they grow you. There's a reason why so many published authors that you look at the Clockwork series, you look at any series, and those writers actually are within the same tribe. If you look at it, and the people they're thanking in their acknowledgments, they are thanking people within their writing group who are actually published in large series somewhere else. So support your tribe, love your tribe, carry them with you as you go, and they're going to grow you. So I think that's the most positive energy that I can give.
That is a lot of positive energy. And now, time for some shameless self-promotion. How do people find this epic book that's coming out?
All right, so Carolina Delca, Dark Eyes. Vampires with extra bite, extra magic, extra dark thriller. You find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, BookBub. There should be a big promotion coming up there. Book Barbarians. There should be a discount coming up on publication date. So December 16th we go live, but until then, pre-orders available, and hard copy should be available within a couple weeks coming up.
Very cool. Do we have a newsletter that people can subscribe to?
Not yet, but soon in the making.
Do it.
I know. They've got to get it
There
done.
better be a newsletter by the time this airs. So I'm going to say, yes, there is a newsletter. And they on what website?
So mrnoblefiction.com is the author website.
And on there, when this airs, will be a newsletter that you can subscribe to get updates. I'm putting that's an Erica, you are being told to go get
My
your
new tribe members are kicking me in the ass.
Yeah,
Get a
see,
newsletter out.
see, now you're getting what I get on a daily is this right here.
Well, because that's where you're going to get 20% of your avid newsletter readers will leave you Amazon and reviews. So growing that newsletter, you wouldn't think, because a lot of people think, oh, that's old school. No, that is how you communicate to your community. The other thing is, do you have on your Facebook a Facebook page for your readers?
That's the thing. I'm actually available on Instagram and Twitter, not available on Facebook.
You better take that pencil you're holding and put the notes down. Newsletter and Facebook page and group. Facebook page group, because I'll tell you, Kenya has the K Killers, for instance, right? And she has one of the most active groups I've ever seen. And she does what you're talking about with the tribes of bringing in guest authors and promoting, and that cross promotion. I mean, seriously active. Jonathan Mayberry has the same thing. Robert Bevan, all these guys. You need to have that active Facebook page. Those are Erica's words of parting advice on this episode.
It's funny you say that. So I've been told also, like there's a big acknowledgement to Kristin Koza in my book that is published. A longtime friend, fantastic vampire enthusiast. She organizes trips to Romania every year for travel and for that, any of those travel writers out there. She's a huge vampire enthusiast as well. So she actually told me yesterday, like, Margarita, what are you doing? Or I go by M, but my real name is Margarita. What are you doing? Like, you have to have this Facebook group. So I've been told twice now. So I think that means that my tribe is telling me, and I better embrace it. So thank you for that.
Me too, because you are such a great person to talk to, and your fans are going to love talking to you, but not if they don't have a place to talk to you. And Instagram and Twitter are not really places to talk necessarily. They're not
really word count, right? There's a word count on each tweet you can make. Like, you can't really have that ongoing dialogue.
Yeah. Well, that Twitter is a very weird, interesting cesspool of trolls. So
yeah, and also
it is.
So speaking of troll, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say Kate Killers. I follow her now because of our interview with her, and honestly, I like it. I don't even always like respond, but she always has the funniest content on there that puts a smile on my face. So sometimes it's just really nice to like connect with your viewership in like really positive ways. And
every one of her surveys, I get 0 points. She has these surveys of things you count points for things you haven't done, and literally there hasn't been. I wrote to her and I'm like, could you please put like a bad girl survey on here, because like things that you've accomplished, I'll win if we can get points for actually having done the things versus I've never. Her fans are like 9, 8. I'm like 0 again. So what were you going to say though?
Okay, I had to pull up something quickly because often in your interviews, you've talked about the worst book that authors have ever read, right?
Oh, you're going to answer that question.
I am. I have to say it because this young lady has brought me hours and hours of entertainment. She is a YouTuber. Her name is Jenny Nicholson. if you YouTube her. And she did a review on the worst book she's ever read. She loves to review the worst books, and I pray to God that my book doesn't wind up on her YouTube channel one day about being the worst book she ever read, because this girl will tear you apart. But she did a podcast on finding the worst book ever. It is called Troll, and I think it's a total of something like, I don't know, 100 pages. That includes 3 books. And it's the worst book that she's ever read. So I had to read it. I absolutely had to read it after her podcast. And it truly is the worst book ever created. So I had to do a shout out, because this young lady who does videos from her bedroom, so that in itself requires courage. She did a podcast on the worst book ever created called Troll. And I believe that's it. So out of all the podcasts you did, I had to mention it, and I had to do a shout out to Jenny Nicholson, last name Nichoolson, on YouTube, because she's freaking hilarious. So if you guys are ever feeling down and out about yourself, and I know us authors hate to throw other authors under the bus, but if you watch this video, you will not feel bad. You will laugh for hours.
I'll make sure
and you will feel better about yourself, as horrible and awful as that is. So
I'll have to have my podcast consigliere, I like just saying that instead of producer, I'll have him throw the link in the podcast notes so people can find her from this podcast.
Perfect.
Wonderbar. Okay, you have been thoroughly amazing to have on this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. This has been Drinking with Authors. I'm Erica Lance.
I'm Vanessa Valiente.
We'll see you next time.
Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. Are you wondering what I'm reading? I'm reading the Author's Accountability Guide, produced by the Four Horsemen. Do you need a day-to-day guide on how to write your book, novel, prose, whatever you're doing with your life? Because writing is hard. This has day-by-day instructions, week-by-week tracking, and motivational things from your muses. So, grab a drink, grab a book, and get some fucking writing done.
Put in charge of these things. Okay, we're recording. Woo! Literary Briefs episode! Yay! Okay. I'm here. I'm ready to drink more. That's the problem. Okay. So I'm your host, Erica Lance. With me is
Vanessa Valiente.
And our guest today is M.R. Noble. She is amazing. Okay,
Woo-hoo.
Let's talk about what we're drinking, because she blew us away on the last podcast. So I have refilled my ginger whiskey and cold apple cider, even though that's not how you're supposed to drink it. So I'm very proud of myself. It's actually really good. So misunderstood ginger whiskey. Vanessa, what are you drinking?
I am still drinking my Yingling. It's still a five-star taste, but 1 star on the execution, because our author here has car bombs. So
Yes.
I can't compete with that.
M.R. Noble.
Hi guys.
What are you drinking, my friend?
I'm drinking the dredges of my car bomb. It's still going strong, ladies. Have 1 car bomb, and that's all you need.
Yes. I wish that was true for me. It's fine. It's okay. I've figured out a way to turn my habit into, fun. So this is a rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I get to pick a special rapid fire question to begin with, because you wanted to mention this. Who has given you your only review so far?
All right, so it's very controversial. I had a bunch of New York Times romance authors offer to give me a review. And when they started reading, these are our naughty but nice girls who write fantastic books, really catchy, really fun. And they started reading my book, and they had that what the fuck moment that I talked about at the beginning. But then they said, oh, this is really good. And they kept reading. So by about maybe 200 pages in, they messaged my agent. And they said, I just can't take the violence anymore. And this romance is so violent. I don't know if it's the same brand as my romance, which has no violence, which I can really understand. So the only quote that I have, pardon me.
Anyway, finish. The only quote, because I think
the only quote that I have on my book is from a super authentic meetup on Twitter, believe it or not. I loved what we do in the shadows. I think the actors are brilliant, the directors are brilliant, the film is just so well done. And I saw on Twitter that someone I followed posted a vampire picture, which I love, a fantastic vampire story. And that vampire happened to be Peter from what we do in the shadows. So I made some sort of a comment about how hilarious it was and what a faux pas it was to eat stew. And what happened was Stuart Rutherford actually commented or liked my comment, which was hilarious at the time, that the actual actor liked my comment, me being, you know, a know-nothing author up in Ontario, Canada. And so later, when the book was done and I was looking for reviews, I reached out to Stu, poor guy. I tracked him down at his work and I sent him an email.
It's
saying,
not
hey,
stalking if it's for good reason.
Yeah, I'm not stalking you. It's just from Twitter. So I'm that funny girl from Twitter. Would you like to give me a review? And he was so sweet and he said yes. So he gave me a review. He read my book. He loved it. I have this fantastic review from Stu. And to this day, my husband and I joke that whenever he talks about Stu, I'm like, oh, Stu, oh, he's so nice. Because,
oh my God.
Yeah, because Stu gave
Okay.
me this fantastic review. So, and he's a wonderful person and a wonderful actor. And I'm very blessed to have his review on my book.
No, I think I'm super excited to read it because I'm all about this violence thing. And
I'm all about that too.
if you're asked to do a review, you're not asked whether or not the fucking book matches what you write. You're asked to do a review of the literary work that you're being presented with. The only acceptable response to me is, this is not my type of book. So if it's not their type of book, fine, don't write a review because you're not my fucking audience anyway, so fuck you. But other than that, you don't get to go, it's too violent for my, like, nobody hits each other in my, fuck you. Like, just, is it a good book? Okay.
Love it. I lost my pencil. I loved it so much.
Wicked pencil. Okay, what is your favorite book of all time?
Oh, so like everyone, like The Haunted Vagina. Again, like how can I compete with that? But my favorite book is very lame. It's actually George Orwell, 1984. I just find the demise of lovers so bone-grindingly crushing. And I'm such a masochist that I'm so haunted by the end of 1984. And I want to dream up all these different endings of how it could have gone better and how they could have made it. And so I think that out of all the books I've ever read, 1984 is the one that just resonates with me the most. Like after every time I read it, like for weeks, I'll be thinking about, well, maybe if they did this, you know, they could have done it. My husband's like, give it up already. So like, I feel like it resonated with me, and it had that bone grinding, like numb your teeth sort of resonating, that where it really hits home. So it's still my favorite book to this day, and no matter how many times I reread it, I can't shake it.
Okay, and we talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, but what are your least favorite book?
So my wonderful and talented and so smart Jenny Nicholson. I don't know her. I'm clearly just your YouTube fan. I don't know you, Jenny, but I feel like I know you. She reviewed the book Troll, and it is by far the worst book ever written. And I love you for bringing that into my life. I think she says it's something like 100 pages of a 3-book. So imagine condensing 3 books into 100 pages. And I think the plot like finally emerges in like the last 10 pages. That is just so obscure and so bad. And I, like us writers, we hate throwing other writers under the bus. I get it. You just have to watch this video. You have to watch her video. You have to understand the debauchery
it's
that
it's
happen with the craft of writing, and you will cry laughing. I pray to God that my book doesn't wind up on her channel ever being reviewed, but if it does, it is karma for saying how horrible Troll is now.
Well, people keep saying you don't want to talk about the craft. Here's the thing, though. Here is the thing. Talking about the craft, talking about anything that has any art to it, you're allowed not to feel in a positive way about the art. And my biggest thing is the books that I find not good or would be on my list of books, right? So are books where the craft is not good. It's not that I don't like the story. It's not my genre. I was given Shogun, for instance, many, many years ago. I didn't fucking read it because I don't want to read that fucking book. It's so long. Planes of Passage is like this thick of a book. Fuck that. I didn't know. I don't have the time to look at the grass and stuff. Not that it's a bad book or the author's bad, but I just don't have the time. That's different than I start reading the book. You didn't get this fucking edited. You don't understand tenses. You are saying the wrong words because you don't know the definition of them. That is a bad book. And that is attributed to not necessarily a terrible writer, but a writer that didn't take the fucking time to get their craft honed. Because I wouldn't necessarily dislike it if that was the case. I'm not going to bitch about something that's not my genre. I read a lot of paranormal romance. I read horror books. I read mysteries. I love books on serial killers. Please don't. I swear to God, my computer history is going to end up being the death of me if I get arrested for a crime. But I'm putting this out there so that somebody can pull up this YouTube channel when that happens. But I think it's different than if somebody puts a bad piece of art. Like, I don't have to see like some art. There was one artist in New York that was like the whole entire thing was a displays of garbage. And I'm like, to me, that is not art. You don't get to display garbage and it smells and you've just, piles and you've thrown it at canvases and go, this is art. Cool if you think that, but no fucking way invite me to that stupid thing. I'm not interested. So I don't think it's bad to say. Now, I wouldn't personally attack an author, and I think that's the difference. Like, I haven't watched Jenny Nicholson yet. I will as soon as we're done with this podcast, and I've had, a couple more drinks and my remotes in my hand. That will be happening. We're in COVID. But I think that it's not bad to criticize a piece of work if there's a legitimate critical.
There's a legitimate reason for
merit,
the criticism.
Thank you. Using all the words. I think there's that. Okay. So with that said, next question. I don't think I quite got, or there's a lot of ginger whiskey in my brain. Either one could be the case. You plot, right? You are a plotter.
Yeah. So I do the least amount of work possible for plotting. And I'm so masochistic when it comes to myself and my writing because I will plot something and then I usually write a fantastic 3 chapters. I really do. I'm very inspired for my 3 chapters. They hook you. They hit all that points on marketing. And then I freaking love for my characters to take the wheel. So I'll plot my book and I'll put all this time into it and I'll be inspired and I'll sit down to write and I'll be so masochistic to myself in the sense that I'll start writing and my characters completely take over. They throw the plot out the window. We're going to have to explore this. And actually in Carolina Delca, Dark Eyes, the first book, when I first sent it to an editor, you guys are going to hate this. So my first book is 70,000 words, like right on the money. And it originally was 110,000 words. And I sent it to the editor and she said, like, you need to start the book on chapter 7. That is when you first started writing. That's when you first started writing. And I was like, you are an amazing editor, Miss Kimmy Beach. You are an amazing editor. You're so right. So I had to turn, I think like a huge amount. I had to turn like 7 chapters into the first 3 of my book and then get it going. And I had to get it going so fast. So I cut like, at least 40,000 words from my novel, boom, to get it to that point. And she said, this is where you started writing. And I told that editor, Miss Kimmy Beach, you were so freaking right. That is when my character took the wheel. So up until that point, I stuck to my plot. But at that point is when I let the characters take the wheel. I threw everything out the window. And she told me that is when you truly started to write. So I rewrote the whole book. I sent it back to her to see. And I think my first draft, bless her heart, she gave me like 14 pages back on critique on my first draft.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I rewrote the whole book, and I said, okay, if you're gonna put the time into butchering my work and just annihilating it, this is worthwhile. If you put the time in to tell me where I went wrong, this is totally worthwhile. So I chopped the book from 110,000 words to 70, and I sent it back to her. And the amount of notes that I got, I went from 14 pages of notes to 2 pages on my second.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I knew that I improved. So after the next, so she looked at the first draft and the second draft. And then after, I guess the next 3 drafts were all my own, and I own that. But just the transition and writing process that it took to go there, like, yes, absolutely. So I found out that I write my best when I let my characters take the wheel, and literally it's like a movie in my head, and I let it flow. And surprisingly, I actually stick on beat more with doing that than I do with plotting. Everyone talks about beats, and when I first started writing, I was like, what's the beat? And I remember in my writing group, like there was some lady there, you know, she probably seen a couple wars and a couple of writing wars. And she told me, if I have to tell you what a beat is, then you shouldn't be writing. I took that home with me, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to take this anger that I have towards now, and I'm going to put it in my writing. But when I actually don't plot, I am far more on beat. So I found that to be really interesting. So I've taken the advice that I've been given thus far, the good, the bad, and I've turned it into what I can. And so for now, plotting and then butchering myself and throwing it out the window, which is fantastic and whimsical, is what yields my results. So I plot and then I murder my plot.
Wow. I think it's, everybody has a different style of writing that they get to. And I think an author acknowledging, like, I've seen people do like outlines and all this stuff. And if it works for them, I'm like, knock yourself out. Just do whatever you're going to do. But I think an author has to find what actually gets them putting words on paper. I don't give a shit about all the other stuff. I give a shit that you're actually getting words on paper and you're producing a product in the end. Whatever that is, go for it. But if you're spending a bunch of time not actually writing because you're doing something else other than fucking writing, then you need to figure out how to cut that out of your life so you write. Whatever it is, if you want to have an entire wall behind you of Post-its and little strings attaching the plot line, if that works, as long as you're putting fucking words on paper, great. But if you're just doing that and your accomplishment is a Post-it board on the back of the thing with a bunch of string, fucking throw it away, light it on fire, and actually write some words on the paper.
So true. Burning it in the backyard may yield some more results than anything else.
Well,
you never know, right?
The great thing about writing is it's not like math, right? Where there's only one way to get to the problem. Like writing, there's literally a million different ways. And if yours doesn't work the same as someone else's, that's okay. As long as the words are on the page, like Erica said.
Yes, Vanessa, as long as the words are on the page.
Yes, that's it. That's what matters, right? Like, and that's, yeah, absolutely. It comes back to your tribe, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Her tribe just has a bully in it. It's fine. So question. You talked about getting your review. I think that's awesome, and what a way to go into the world of reviews. Do you give reviews on books?
I would love to. I haven't yet. I've mentioned Lonnie Cameron. She's a debut author. I think she's going to be fantastic. Like, high fantasy world, hold on to your fucking hats because she's going to blow you away. And I truly believe that. Like, I think she's a fantastic author, and I think she's going to blow people's minds, truly. So I'm behind her. I'm 100% supportive of her work. She's a good friend of mine, and we met through the love of writing. So it's not that she was a good friend that I'm like, rah, rah, go team, you're a great writer. And I say that without merit. It's that we met because she was a fantastic writer. And we both met for coffee and to go over our manuscripts and to annihilate each other's manuscripts and make them better. And this is actually prior to my publication. So I'm saying this because I think she's a fantastic writer. So I hope I can give her a review one day. I have yet to give a review. I love to be a part of the journey for other authors and give reviews. Absolutely. Have I done it yet? No. So I hope to in the future.
So we need to get you on giving reviews to certain authors. See how you do.
I'd be into it. Yeah.
Put you on the stage and see how you do there, Em.
Yeah, perfect. I'll wing it. But if
That's
you'll be
okay.
happy with that.
I wing everything I do, just for the record. It's interesting because I do public speaking and stuff for my day job. And they always want to give me like a script. And I'm like, you don't want to give me a script. It's going to go horribly wrong. Give me some bullet points and I've got this. I can remember what to do at that point in time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. We talked about your process, how you got here and all this, and it's really interesting talking to somebody who is a debut novelist because it's not like you're knee deep in the mire and you've written 100 books like Kenya Wright, who just whatever makes us all look bad. It's fine. She's wonderful. She can make us look bad.
But she's so lovely. Like, make me look bad, but you're so lovely. Like, we don't care. We love you anyways.
She is, and she is so supportive of the other writers. Like me and Honey Cummings are actually going to take over, I think she calls it, her K-Kellers on the 25th of October. I'm super excited about that. But so you're going through this process. You obviously have a lot of support of your family, which is awesome, right? And your husband, who's like, go ahead and, have empires and have them kill people. So when it comes to reading, though, what do you love to read?
Anything fast-paced and dirty, as bad as it sounds. So, like, I love my urban fantasy. I have read high fantasy. I actually really do like Terry Goodkind. I know he passed away. He has mixed reviews because of not everyone took to his writing. He also has mixed reviews because of a person. I think I got into the first 8 to 9 books of his series, which speaks a lot. I did enjoy his series. I did recently read Listen to the Wind. Fantastic. Harry Dresden, he's on my back bookshelf. Not everyone is a fan of his style of voice or his execution or grammar, but I loved his books. I read the first 13. I haven't read the most recent. I got 13 books in to at least that series, and they're so fun. I suggest it to anyone who's an urban fantasy reader. Anita Blake, I do love her stories. The Suki Stackhouse series, I actually used as comparable for my book, which may be pretty egotistical because they're fantastic.
Please just tell me you don't change the race of different characters, because I really appreciate Charlene
Harris.
Yeah.
But she fucking changed the actual race of a character in the book, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, how does nobody get this?
So, wait, I have to ask, what team are you on? Bill or Eric?
I love Eric.
Eric.
I love Eric. Oh my God, he's so saucy. I just fucking love Eric. And like, let's talk about Alexander Skarsgård for a minute. Because my God, that man is
have
like
you seen him in
created by Valkyries.
His body is like solid as a rock.
Yeah, well, his body in that movie, if you listen to him talk about getting ready for it, he's like, whatever. I know
he can't eat pasta. Poor soul. My husband.
Like he was literally They eat, what do they eat? Baked chicken breast and broccoli. That's all they eat for like 6 months to get ready for those rolls, to have that little
Poor
hip
baby.
bone thing.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking Skarsgårds. All of them. They're fucking
True.
beautiful people.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
who would, okay, so
But I
you,
also read a lot of historical fiction. I was just going to say one shout out, fantastic historical fiction. I can't read it often because I love a fast-paced book. Like, give it to me quick and dirty. But my mom was reading The Secret Life of Theodora. And she's like, oh, it's so good. You have to read it. Okay, mom. So I borrowed it. It was so good. Like, talk about a historical fiction that is fast-paced. I bawled my eyes out within the first, I can't remember what chapter it happens in, but within the first 2 to 6, roughly, chapters, I bawled my eyes out. And that's early to get attached to a character. Like, The Secret Life of Theodora is a fantastic historical fiction. It's all about the Byzantine Empire and the rise of Theodora as a person. So there's a really cool women's lib vibe, but like, talk about a quick and dirty pacing and fantastic, powerful writing. So that's really my shtick. When it comes to historical fiction, if it's like long-winded and full of purple prose, you're not going to hold my attention. I'm sorry. I have the attention of a goldfish when it comes to writing. But that's an example of the amazing historical fiction that I actually could read. Otherwise, like, I love a fast-paced urban fantasy.
that's very cool. So, your character, so you actually are going to do 3 different series with 3 different very strong female characters.
Prose,
Not giving
yeah.
anything away, although she come to 4 horsemen. So let's talk about that for a moment. But if you could pick somebody, I don't think I've ever asked this, and I don't know why this just came to me talking to you, but whatever, it's fine. It's my show. Who would you pick to play your lead character of your current series?
All right, so let's see. So Carolina Delka in Dark Eyes, she is a proud Canadian. She is a first-generation immigrant, and she is Romanian. So she's got to have some sort of a Romanian vibe from what's going on there. I really picture like obviously a dark hair. She has dark hair, dark eyes, so she has to be a dark-haired beauty. But whoever plays her has to be full of fire, like absolutely full of fire. So as far as actresses go, I do picture Bonnie from the Vampire Diaries, even though like she wouldn't be from the right descent, but she's just like, she's so passionate. So that would be a good one. Nina Dobrev is also like, she's a great pick for the dark-haired, dark-eyed vibe, but I feel like we really need a fiery character to go there.
I was going to say, I don't feel like she's strong enough. If you want a fiery character, that is not what she pulls off
Like,
all the time.
she's a lovely actress. She's fantastic. She's very intelligent. I think the role, if and when, I know you both said you'd offer to review the book on Amazon, great. When you read the book, this is a very powerful character. My female character was raised to be a nice, caring human, have human empathy, have human values. But she's a complete monster. And she has to constantly battle that. And what separates my vampire book from a lot of the others that have been written so far is that my female protagonist is the vampire monster. This is not a human girl falling in love with a vampire. She is the monster. She is battling with being a monster and being human and fighting her urge to rip her date's throat out. Like, that's her every day.
Ooh.
Is that she'll probably die a virgin because she can't get much farther than making out without wanting to slaughter the person that she's with. So
That's like every female in any book I ever write.
That almost
Perfect.
sounds like, have you ever read Rochelle Mead's books?
Yes.
It's like the Succubus series.
Oh, I haven't read the Succubus series. I love Vampire Academy. I love
I'm so
Vampire
glad.
Academy.
Do you do, well, because I know that one's Romanian, Strigoi, Moroi. Do you do
Yes.
Strigoi? Oh,
No, I don't do it that way. So in my book, we have elemental magic. We have the charmed people. that have magic of earth, air, fire, water. They have the magic of the light and the dark. So the people that you read about in the newspaper where a miracle happens could likely be someone with the light charm, whereas the dark charm is giving up pieces of your soul to gain power and end up becoming monsters.
Vanessa, you're the light charmed, and I'm the dark charmed.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
But black and white, although it's a huge theme in yin and yang and historically in culture and religion, black and white is actually very gray, right? There's so many different shades of gray to finally arrive at the point of absolute white or absolute dark. So the book really investigates that as a concept. So anyone can do magic, like humans, supernaturals alike. The charm is there. It is a force. It's almost like God in the sense that it's everywhere, is all around you, and people can invoke that. Just like anyone can do wrong, anyone can also still do good for redemption. So in sparking the light charm, the dark charm, in sparking the earth charm, the fire charm, it takes an extreme acts. You can also be born with certain aspects. So there's a very complex magical system that sets my book apart, and it's grounded deeply in old tradition, cross-cultural, in the Indigenous peoples of Ontario, in the Indigenous peoples of Romania, in the Indigenous peoples of Egypt. So like these are really rooted in all cultures cross-culturally without actually referencing any sort of religion or race, which I think is great in the fact that it's universal. And then we also have the multiculturalism of the supernatural community. So Caro is a half vampire. Her mother is a vampire. Sorry, her father was a vampire. Her mother is just charmed. Gypsy descent from Romania. She's a proud gypsy. We use the term in the book. She's happy that's where she came from, and she owns it. Gypsy is also a magical being, so it's never used in a negative connotation that other people may use. So she's proud of her heritage, proud of coming from gypsy descent across into Romania. So with that said, we have vampires, we have werewolves, we also have beings that have never debuted in a novel before, which I'm really excited about. So it's a really cross-cultural supernatural book. And the Dark Eyes series is meant to be the introduction, and then as we delve deeper into the magical systems in the worlds and the different species, over the Dark Eyes series, and then as well as the other two series, we're going to be introduced to a lot more cross-culturally. So the Dark Eyes series is written first person from Caro's perspective. So that's what you're going to get, is her hands-on experience of being introduced to the world. And then my next series has multiple point of views, which is going to introduce a lot more. And then the third series also has multiple points of view. So, and the third series is based a lot more in Latin America. So that's really exciting.
Ooh, I'm excited.
I'm excited to read the book. I'm excited to read the book. It's going to be...
I have to ask, have you ever watched Peaky Blinders?
Oh, yes.
I feel like
I do have
totally your speed with the Romanian gypsy, and then the fact that they are just all morally gray characters.
Absolutely. So I am of Irish descent. I keep my cultural background like a little bit sort of close to my chest, but I am of a lot of Irish descent, and I'm probably a pikey. Yeah, absolutely. I did my 23andMe, had a lot of Spanish genes mixed with the Irish, so yeah, a lot of pikey in me, so that will come through a lot in my writing as well. Mm-hmm.
I'm a Black Irish descent. Do we know what that means?
Yes, it means the Moors. Yeah, so a lot of the Moors genes came up from Ireland. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of people don't realize that, like Gangs of New York, I watched that movie. So when my parents came to America, not my parents, my great, whatever, they actually lied when they got off the boat and said they were Dutch and made up a last name. Not even kidding, because if you watch Gangs of New York, the movie, for instance, it talks about the Black Irish, and they were everybody who was outside of the walled cities when England took over. Because England put walls around all the cities, so everybody who was not inside the city was considered Black Irish. I just attribute this to my drinking skills, really, more than anything else. So,
Which is a great skill to have, let's be honest.
it is. We were talking about it yesterday at work, as a matter of fact, because there's people that are like, I get drunk on one glass of wine, and I'm like, oh my God.
It's me. I'm sorry.
I know it's you, Vanessa.
I'll admit
Spoon
it.
away.
I know. I'm not Irish though, so it's not in me.
Okay, so what is when you're sitting down and you're writing, and you can write anywhere, which is awesome, right? Do you have any sort of soundtracks you listen to when you're writing?
Absolutely. I love EDM, so like electronic dance music, which is probably why like my voice of my books is just so effed up. And they're like, oh, this is the darkest scene, but it's really peppy. I don't know why.
That's
Like
awesome.
probably was listening to EDM at the time. I love electronic dance music. I actually did a shout out on Twitter to some of the most amazing EDM I've ever heard. It's actually from Romania. They have the most amazing dance music coming out of Romania right now. It's fantastic. Some of it is older that I originally posted. I love a lot of European dance music. I can't get enough of it. I started out as a rocker and roller. One of my favorite bands of all time was Rage Against the Machine. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I love
just
them.
fantastic, powerful music. And but I love the dance music, the EDM that's been coming out lately. I just think is fantastic. And I can usually find a song that is very powerful and just resonates with me deeply with each scene that I'm writing. So on Twitter, I actually posted one of the Romanian songs that was the theme to my first book. I could just picture it. If it was ever a movie, I could picture it at the opening credits. I could picture it at the closing credits. I could picture it as the theme. It was just so inspiring. So I used it to write, I think, chapter 7, Romania, the Home of Folklore. That chapter in my book. The music that I wrote about when she lands in Romania was inspired by the song that I posted on Twitter. So you can check it out there.
What's that one movie? Is it Blood and Chocolate? Have you ever seen that one?
It's a great movie. Absolutely.
For some reason,
movie.
I know, and I feel like when you're talking about all the Romanians, I'm like, God, I feel like she's talking about Blood and Chocolate and like Vampire Academy and all these different things.
But oh my God, so like Vampire Academy, I have all those books. I loved that series. I loved it. It was so much fun. Who didn't want to be Rose Hathaway? You know what I mean? Who didn't want to be Rose Hathaway? Blood and Chocolate, fantastic movie. Like dirty, fun, passionate. Yeah, really great.
Yeah.
So I have a question, Vanessa.
Sorry.
People will see my finger gesture on. I still don't think putting myself on is a good idea. But what if your characters are based on people you know?
Ooh. My husband and I had a joke that for my acknowledgement page, I did my acknowledgements and then I was going to write, enter a couple lines for some dramatic impact. To all the lovers that I had before, thanks for the material. Just kidding.
No, that's pretty much my book series.
Yeah. So how much is based on actual people? I think that the human experience will affect everything we write. Definitely. And then I think our characters, at some point with any great writer, I hope that I could be great one day. Maybe I'm just kind of good. Those characters become real people in our minds, for sure. When we're writing them, they are real people. And then what we do is we flood our human experience into that character. And what I told a friend of mine when I was writing once, because one character was kind of flat, and we were talking about that just at the early stage of her writing. And I said, our characters only ever have what we give them. Imagine that for a second. So imagine if you never had a birthday. Imagine if you never had loss. Imagine if you didn't have loving parents, or if you didn't go to school. Imagine what you have, because your character only ever has what you give them. So if you gave them love, maybe they'll be loving. If you gave them a convoluted relationship with one parent, maybe they're going to be jaded. If you gave them a predisposition to maladaptive coping, then they're not going to cope well with the hate or the loss they have. Do they have a vice? Like, what is it that you're giving them? Because your character will only ever have what you've ever given them. So if you look at what we have as people that give us the human experience, I think we draw from that. Like, we watch our friends struggle, or we watch our friends succeed, or we watch ourselves succeed. And like, those moments are moments of pain, or like moments of euphoria, or something in between that's not as extreme. But whatever that is, that's the human experience. And I think we draw from that, and then we try to siphon it into our characters, being writers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, whether we're a magician or we're a masochist, we're going to siphon whatever we can into these little characters on the page. So I think that everything we have, everything that we ever write is going to be drawn from us and people we know for sure. It's just what we choose to give them will probably depend on how we feel about that character. Is that too convoluted of an answer?
No,
It is not
actually,
convoluted, and a perfect point that I'm going to say. How do people find you?
Oh! How do people find me? Okay, so I work for the government, like, which is
No,
why
don't not how people find you in real life. How do people find you as a writer?
I was
not
making a point. So I'm for my day job, until I eventually branched into writing. My nickname at work is Disney Princess, because I'm that person that comes in the morning like, morning, I brought coffee, that everyone secretly wants to drive over with their car. So,
or not so secretly. It just depends.
yeah, I'm also a trauma specialist. So in a lot of my books, there's a huge underlying theme of trauma and loss. So I think that I cover some pretty hardcore topics in life and in writing, but I'm also a very bubbly person, which makes
So how
for
do
a very
people find you as a writer,
voice.
though? That's
So
my
I was just saying, so this makes for a very confusing voice. My voice is optimistic, and I can, and the voice of the story is always perseverance, whereas it's also covering some pretty dark themes. So I think as a writer, I have these romantic notions still, despite 1984, that love can conquer all, and that one person can make a difference. And I have these beautiful, romantic, positive notions, while throwing my characters into these horrible, horrible situations.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, so if you have a website, what is your website?
So it's www.mrnoblefiction.com.
And your Twitter?
It is at mrnoble.
And your Instagram?
It should be mrnoble. m.r.noble. Yeah.
Guessing. And I'm assuming the Facebook that's soon to come will be that
Soon.
as well. Soon to come. And with the newsletter on the website.
And the newsletter, absolutely.
You have been a fantastically wonderful guest, my friend.
Thank you.
You have been awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
And I have to showcase the empty glass, guys. This was drinking.
she drank, she beat us all. I still have half of this beer.
It's not beat us all. Vanessa, seriously, what the hell kind of drinking with authors are you doing? You're like, I'm kind of drinking.
Well, listen, I was put to shame at the very first hello when she busted out with an Irish car bomb, and I was like, oh, womp womp. Like,
Oh my goodness. Okay, this has been Drinking with Authors Literary Briefs. I've been your host, Erica Lance.
I'm Vanessa Valiente.
And our guest has been M.R. Noble, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, ladies.